Here we go. All right.
That was so hard to keep time because Chip was. I know he was in time with me on his end, but it's like, where's one? Where's one?
Little lag.
Now you know how it feels on the gig.
Exactly. Now I know how all the guys in the band feel.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome and welcome back to the Drummers Education Connection. We're here every Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we're here to talk about drums and drummers, and on occasions, we get to interview some really, really terrific people in the industry, and today is no exception. We are here with our very good friend of the show, and just a great guy all around, a great drummer, Joe Bergamini. Welcome back to the Drummers Education Connection.
Yay, Joe!
Thanks for having me back on, guys.
Oh,
Thank you. I'm excited.
We are too. We always look forward to checking in with you and seeing all the great stuff you got going on, because you always got so much going on, man. You're a hustler, you're a mover and a shaker, and it's so cool to always to talk to you and just catch up with all the great projects you're involved with. For those of you who don't know, Joe, in addition to being a really, really fine drummer and a touring drummer and an educator, he's also the director and I think part creator of the Sabian Education Network, and also works, there it is, the SEN, Sabian. He also works with Rob Wallace at Hudson Music. And if you have a book, no, I'm just kidding.
No more.
Thank you. Good night.
And a couple of us, Bart and Rick and mine. Well, actually, we'll talk about Rick in a minute. We're on Hudson too, so we're always excited to hear about what's going on over there at Hudson as well. So, Joe, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
Before we get started with the sort of proper interview, we like to kick something around. And we start a little segment called Good Things. And this is just our effort to focus on the positive because there's so much heavy shit going on in the world. So let's kick it to Bart. What's going on for you, buddy? What's good?
Well, as you can tell, I'm not in my studio. I am in an Airbnb in Arizona. The SMB is out on the road on a 17-day run. And actually, it's a 3-month run. We have 17 shows. 15 left. We've done 2 so far, and the band's locking and rocking and just kicking butt. I've been talking for a number of months about my new book, and it is now a done deal. It's called Drum Up Your Business. DRUM is an acronym. It stands for Determination, Relationships, Understanding, and Mentorship. And I just signed the contract with Joe B last week. It's going to be on Hudson Music. Hopefully by the summertime, we're going to have a release. But got the first drafts of the artwork this week. It's looking great. And so life is good. Everything's going great, man. So I've got no complaints. I'm a happy man.
Beautiful.
Congrats,
Rick,
Bart.
how about you, man?
Thanks, bud.
And Bart, your mic sounds amazing, even on the road, man.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
It's so impressive. You're on the road and you got your kit there. Are you teaching lessons?
Oh, yeah. So yesterday and today was dark. And so I don't have my 3 cameras set up. So like I've got to move the camera around. But I teach while I'm on tour, and I get, I keep everybody happy and everybody stays up on their lessons. And I write while I'm on the road a lot too. So yeah. So matter of fact, after we get off here today, I jump online and I go till, here's my schedule. There's my schedule. I go till 9 tonight. So that's gonna be a long day.
Nice.
Rick, what's going on for you, bud?
Well, my good thing deserves a drum roll, Bart. So can you give us a drum roll?
I don't know how to play one.
Well, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Bergamini and Rob Wallace have signed me to Hudson Music Digital for the 4-book series. It is now available, and thank you so much, Joe. And it's just such a huge honor to be up on that platform. And thank you to all my students who've helped me along the way with all this. All the beta testing that's been going on for years and years and years has finally come together. And the 4-book series is on the Hudson Music Digital platform. And thank you, Joe.
Congrats,
it's been so fun working with you. Just so exciting. All 4 books are on the platform too. It's not just the first one. There's Mastering 16th Note Grooves. There is the Phil book, and then the Mastering Triplet Grooves. Yes, you can get your shuffles together with this book, and they're all available on the Hudson Digital platform for just $16 a book. That's really good. And
Good
you
price.
could get all 4 books for the price of 3. That's 25% discount.
I thought you were going to say that's 25 years of my life.
Well, it is pretty close to that.
Congratulations, Rick. Couldn't happen
Yeah,
for a
man.
better guy, man.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys. So thank you, Joe.
Of
Chip,
course.
what about you, Chip?
Man, you know what? I've been having a banger of a day. It's been such a positive experience so far. I'm trying not to question it. I'm trying just to go with it. My good thing is I went into Fry's. I got some creamer for my coffee, and I'm in line. And the checker was looking down and just kind of like going through the motions, just not a scowl, but just down looking. And I thought to myself, I feel great today. I'm gonna make her smile. I'm gonna do something. I don't know what, but I'm going to make her smile. And I got up and she was like, hello. And I was like, hello. And I smiled and I went, and she lit up and smiled.
Yeah.
A kid who's bagging groceries with Down syndrome the next aisle over, all of a sudden goes, I'll show you how to dance, and starts doing these moves. And he spins around, and when he gets done, he goes, ta-da! And everybody erupted in applause.
Oh,
it was
man.
amazing.
Oh,
It was
Right
just amazing.
on,
That's my
man.
good thing. How about you,
Wow.
Joe?
That's beautiful, Chip. That's so awesome. It's so easy to smile at somebody and just be nice,
Mm.
Really,
It
it
is.
really is. Everything's, I guess, almost a lot of nice things. I guess, my son just left to go teach, so it's always nice to see him, pursuing the passion that we all have. And we just had the Delaware Drum Show this past Sunday.
Yeah.
So I took one of my students, his name was Jeremy, and then Nick came and helped run the Hudson booth. Yeah, good name. And then we went out to dinner, Rob Wallace and I from Hudson, and we took Bernard Purdy and David Garibaldi out to dinner.
Nice.
And just getting to see my son Nick and my student Jeremy get to sit with those guys and ask them questions, man. It was like, Jeremy on the way home, he literally said, "You're the greatest teacher ever."
Oh, I love that. That's so
And,
great.
yeah, but that was really good. So that was just a really uplifting, day.
Yeah.
It's a very that drum show, for those who don't know, it's in Delaware, and it's not a gigantic show, but it draws a lot of people from our area, New York, Philly, all over the Northeast. And I just, all those things, I see so many friends. It's like almost like a family reunion.
Really great.
Yeah.
Love it. That's
so
the
cool.
I had that same experience at PASIC this last time. I brought one of my students with me, and she was just like wide-eyed the whole time and said, that was the best experience I ever had.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so cool.
I totally I have, a pretty good amount of like guys and gals our age, like adult hobbyists. Some of them are pretty serious,
Mhm.
and some of them, they don't know what PASIC is. Some of them sort of heard of it, but I always really encourage them to sorry guys, always really encourage people to go. It's like drummer's dream weekend,
Yeah, totally.
Completely. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's right. And and the drumming community is so inclusive. You don't have to be some kind of big time pro to attend one of these shows and benefit from it. And
Yeah.
we're all students at this. If you ask us all what we have in common, we're all students of drumming.
Mhm.
And so we're just at different levels of experience. So
Yeah.
check out PASIC, check out NAMM, check out any local drum show, folks.
Probably
should start-
like a lot of like us, like I can't even imagine how many friends I have that I met going to those shows, clinics, festivals, PASIC and NAMM and all that, so it's, can you guys see this, or is it, oh yeah, you can sort of see it.
Yeah.
I just want to mention for those who haven't looked at Hudson Digital, what it is. And by what it is, I mean what it is.
What it is.
So you can see the screen, right? Like there's a home screen, and then there's like a shop, and then the shop shows all these different books that you can browse through. Rick is showing his screen there, and then you can go to your bookshelf. Rick, that's your bookshelf, right?
That's my bookshelf. Yes.
Then once you've bought books, they go onto your shelf, and then you can browse through them just like any other books you own. And then once you go into a book, I don't know, I'll pick a DG's notebook because I'm in a DG mood because he was awesome this weekend. So then you get the book on your screen. You can carry it around, and then anywhere that there's media, if the author has recorded video or audio, there's icons, and you can press the icons, and it pops up and plays.
Oh,
yeah. So I definitely. It's funny. I had been. I don't know if you guys share this, but like I found an interesting thing. Like I told my students, most physical books now, nobody prints discs anymore.
Right.
Right.
Right. So all of these books come with, code. Like you have to go to the Alfred site or the Hal Leonard site. And in our case, Hal Leonard, they house the media and you download it. I've been asking my students, like every one of them that has a paper book, because of course the paper book still has and will always have its following, right? Literally almost none of them will do that. But if they use the digital version, all you have to do is press the button. So if I'm practicing a book, I love paper books too. I mean, I'm a book guy, obviously. So
Yeah.
I have all my favorite books. I have both the physical and the digital. But when I practice, like I've been shedding this book, the classic, Funkifying the Clave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't forget, in Hudson, it's not just all of our new books and all the Hudson books, but we licensed all the classics too. Chapin, Afro-Cuban Rhythms for Drum Set, John Riley. So I'll keep the paper book out, but I hook up, into my rig, my interface that we all use now in the Zoom days of teaching, and listen to it. So, and interestingly, I have a few students who converted all to all digital. They have the Hudson bookstore and they just buy digital.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, aside from one teenage student who's in Japan, all of the converts to the all digital are all like adult middle-aged students. Most of my kids students like the paper book still. It's just not kind of counterintuitive, but
Yep.
Well, kids are buying cassettes these days too, so you never know.
No, that's great.
Yeah. You know what else is great on the Hudson Digital site is that you have an index. You can easily find a chapter rather than looking through a paper book and trying to thumb through and find page whatever 80, 88. You could just go over there, hit the index, and it'll get you right to that particular chapter that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's got like a bookmark thing in it too. So you can really track what you're working on, what you're, so you could follow your.
Yeah. In my studio, I've got 2 full bookshelves of drum books that I've collected over the years. And I'm still also like you, Joe, a paper guy. And I like the feeling of the books. I like putting the book on the stand and seeing it and flipping through it. But, and I got a whole stack of DVDs too. But, I also have on my computer, everything in one spot. So if I'm on vacation or if I'm traveling or if I'm teaching remotely, I have access to everything I need with click of a button. So you can't beat it.
It does work fantastic for teaching remotely. Like I said, I mean, I'm on tour right now and I've got on all my dark days, I'm teaching. And I've got a couple of, I've got syncopation with me here on a music stand because I just grabbed it and threw it in my cymbal bag that has my stuff in it. But when you have it on a tablet, and we're working out of this today. We're working out of that today. And it's all in one place. It does. It makes life really easy.
Yeah.
I see.
Go ahead, Joe.
I see a question from Lindsay. Would I recommend going all digital? That's a great question. I definitely think you should check it out. I mean, in a case like my bookcase is right over there. So here's a book I use a lot with students that I love, the Breakbeat Bible. And this book, it's a very thick book, and the digital, I'll go to the digital version because this is one of those ones that I'll have to clamp it down every time,
Right, yeah.
So I find it like certain ones I'm going to, I can access the media easier. So if you haven't checked out the digital yet, I would definitely get a few of your most favorite books, even if you have them already, and just see. If you're more effective practicing with it, like if you're doing something like this or one of the John Riley books, if you're not listening to the audio, you're just making it so that you're going to take longer to learn the material.
Very well said. You're right. 100%.
Yeah. You're missing out on a valuable resource that can help you.
just an FYI for the people who are listening to this on the podcast, this is at hudsonmusic.com.
Mhm.
Go check it out.
Did you put that in the chat?
I put
Chip?
that in the chat.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not only are on the platform do you have all of the method books, but there's literal books. There's Jeremy's Finding the Groove. And there's Bart's Rhythmic Journey, Zorro's book, Maria's Scarf, and just so many history books. So it's not all about just playing the drums. It's knowing the stories behind. And so
that's a great segue because they got biography type books.
yes.
And I think we've been hearing about this book that Joe did with Billy Cobham. Am I right?
That's right.
That's
It's
a good
this,
segue.
this very book right here, Billy Cobham. It's called Cobham, The Music and Drumming of Billy Cobham.
Whoa.
And I guess you could say it's the latest in a series of ones that I've done. And the last one being Gadd, A Life in Time with Steve Gadd. Now, before that, Stuart Copeland, before that, Neil Peart. And the real thrill, oh, yeah, thanks, Rick, yeah. The thrill of doing these is for those 4 projects, I work directly with the artist and in a few cases gotten to know them really well. In the case of Bill, I've gotten to know him pretty well, and he's just a great guy. It's a little intimidating talking to somebody like Billy Cobham at first because he's such an important figure in what we do. I mean, he's a titan. Beyond having changed the drum set and how it's played, he's also composed jazz standards, Stratus and Red Baron. These are standards.
Right.
The crazy prolific output that he's had as a solo artist, as a composer. I think he has 40, 50 albums as a composer. It's like a complete concept. Like everything is full of intention. The way he thinks about the drums, the way he plays the drums, the way he composes, the way his setup is. And then you look at who he's played with. I got to interview Ron Carter, John McLaughlin, and Randy Brecker for this book.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's another really incredible sort of, I'll be honest, intimidating, getting Ron Carter on an interview and talking to him about what's going on. And, I try to do a lot of research. So for those who haven't seen the book, it's half biography, pretty much half and half biography and musical analysis with transcriptions. So if you read, there's a lot of transcriptions in it. You can, see a lot of stuff in there.
Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey, James. So the transcriptions in this one, I have a great transcriber named Terry Branham. And Terry's been in the industry a long time. He's fantastic. And he actually did the transcriptions for the Gadd book and the Cobham book. For Neil, I did them all myself. For Stuart, I did many of them. And then I had Terry and a couple other guys help me out. But for these, the books have really grown into more of a actual biography with a lot more analysis, a lot more biography with Cobham and Gadd. And it's like, and I sound like Captain Obvious, but like it takes a lot of work to write a book like on a biography, especially,
Really?
I probably interviewed Bill on Zoom 12 times.
Wow.
So, even if you have those interviews transcribed, like it's like hundreds of hours of like, looking at what he said, then fact checking what he said, then interviewing other people, then going online and reading other books and all that stuff. So if I had done the transcriptions myself on this, like it would take 4 years, So luckily Terry's amazing at it. So yes, the transcriptions are killer and you should check them out.
You said something that I really, sorry, Chip.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, how does something like a bio book on an artist at that level come about? Is it an idea that you had and said, hey, this would be a great idea? Or does the artist approach you? How does that form?
That's a good question. So usually in my case, Rob Wallace from Hudson and I will talk about somebody that we think would be of interest to a lot of drummers. Obviously we want to, make something that's going to have a big audience,
Right.
and for the books. And then, we'll go and we'll talk about who are some of maybe the biggest players that would have a wide audience and are of that level of importance. haven't had a book done about them. And of course, up until now, we've done it with a living subject that would be willing to work with us directly on it. And then I would just say, in my case, the ones that I've done, I always felt like the ones that I've done, I'm starting from a place of pretty good knowledge about the subject. So if I felt like there was a drummer, there's certainly like a lot of legendary drummers that would be worthy of sort of like this type of a biography with transcription thing, that maybe I'm not the biggest expert on them. For instance, Max Roach, let's say. I'm a big fan of Max Roach. Listened to a ton of Max Roach, transcribed it, learned a lot of it. But I don't know nearly as much about Max as I do about Billy, for instance, because I was a Billy super fan before I wrote the book.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So usually we'll think about it, and then in the cases of the 4 that I mentioned, we did approach those guys.
And Joe, do you have a background in writing? Did you go to school and study English or writing or anything like that?
That's funny. So my story is the kind of abbreviated cliff notes of this because people find it really amusing. I started playing drums when I was in the 7th grade, and from the day I started, my dream was to be a drummer. I was kind of a nerd kid. I was good at math, got good grades, math and science. When I got into high school, I was in the school band. I did all the school music activities, and they put me in advanced math and advanced science and advanced history. They didn't pick me out for advanced English, oddly. And, I never really paid attention to it. Like, I was smart enough. Like, I was not in a high level English class. And like if we were studying like Beowulf or something, I could figure out the answers to the teacher's questions just by logic. Like, I never read it, and then I had to. My father, was old-fashioned guys. Like, you got to have a fallback plan in case music doesn't work out. And I didn't really want to go away to school because I wanted to practice drums. So I chose architecture as a fallback plan.
Oh, wow.
Partially because I liked it, and partially because New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark, New Jersey, 20 minutes from my house and on the way to New York City, had a program. And I could stay home, commute to college, and pursue my true dream, which was being a drummer, right? Now, of course, I was into Rush and Neil Peart, and I read Neil's lyrics, and I became a reader. I read poetry and I read books and things. And I took a poetry class in college. And can you imagine teaching poetry at an engineering college? What a curse. And I had to write my papers, and like my schedule was so crazy because I was teaching. I was in 3 bands. People were dropping out of architecture school because they couldn't handle the workload. And I was like juggling everything. I literally had to schedule writing my papers. Like, this one's due in 6 days, but I'm teaching every day and I have a gig, so I got to write it tonight. And I would, in the poetry class, this woman who was teaching it would give me back the papers like graded A with 5 pluses next to it.
Wow. And
one day she pulled me aside and she was like, "Have you ever thought about writing?" And I was like, "No, why? Am I any good at it?" I know. And that was it. Like, I always enjoyed it. And then when I became a pro, getting published in Modern Drummer and having articles was like so prestigious. That was a goal I had. And, Modern Drummer, hats off to Adam Badofsky, the former editor of Modern Drummer. If you read, and I guess Rick Mattingly did some before, Van Horn and Bill Miller, but Adam at the end, I never found a typo in Modern Drummer. Never, back then. Right? Those guys were tight. Adam was an English guy, right? So when I wrote my first book, Drum Techniques of Zeppelin for Alfred, which was Warner Brothers at the time, they had a copy editor on staff, and I asked to see the red line of it. And then that's when the hard part about writing and really making it finish is that part, the punctuation and the structure. Like, all day long yesterday was like, play this as a 4-bar phrase. Okay, well, in that sentence, 4-bar needs to be hyphenated because it's used as an adjective, right?
Right.
So if you say, we're going to play 16th notes, no hyphen. If we're going to play a 16th note groove, you need a hyphen. Like, all that stuff, like learning those rules, I learned on the job at Hudson, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I want to circle back around to something that you said, Joe, about writing about like these iconic drummers, right? Billy Cobham, Neil Peart, so forth. I remember years ago seeing the day that you and Dom spent with Neil Peart and got to, hang with him and stuff like that. And I'm sure it was more than just one day.
No,
And
it
I
was one
know
day.
it really was one day. Okay. And I know that you're like this huge Neil Peart fan. And what you said a second ago about, being intimidated by Billy Cobham. Being the drum geek that we all are, what was that like? I mean, you had to have just been like, oh my God, because you're standing in hallowed ground, when you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like?
I come from the place, I come from a place of deep respect for these artists, right? So
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
yeah, and I have this added level of pressure. It's not pressure, it's fine. But like if Rob Wallace, like he knew Neil, right? So he's introducing me to Neil in the context of like, hey, this is our new editor, and he knows a lot about your work, and we'd like him to work on a project with you that's about you. So not only do I have to worry if he thinks I'm a doofus, but I could tank an important project for my company, so it's like there's an added, and you're like, hey, meet Stuart Copeland. Here's Joe. He's going to write your, this biography about you. That's like, okay. They're like, who is this clown? Like, I mean, so that's kind of where I feel a little bit more like I want to establish a level of respect for them. I want them to. It's nowadays, of course, I can send these other books so they can see, that I've done the things before. But I want to make sure I give an impression that I'm going to be able to listen to them and tell the story in an intelligent, respectful way, and that they're going to like the process and they're going to be comfortable with it. And usually we go through a little bit of a like acclimation period. And if Rob knew Neil and he knew Gad, so he kind of brought me in, and there was just a little entry level of trust. With Stuart, I sent him some transcriptions that I had done, just so that he could trust me. And of course, some of the guys Neil's wasn't a great reader, but Stuart writes symphony charts. He's a great reader.
Yeah.
Billy Cobham and Steve Gadd do everything. Like they read everything. Two of the probably greatest readers in the world. So I sent Stuart a transcription of every little thing he does is magic, and he sent it back to me with some red corrections with an A+ on it, like creative.
Oh, that's the coolest.
Yeah, it's in my, it's needless to say, it's in my scrapbook. But yeah, and then that's where I come from. And then Stuart, we had a really great, healthy personal relationship. He let me come to a rehearsal and sit behind him and the whole thing. But with Neil and Steve and Billy, I developed a friendship with the guys. It's just amazing. Billy's coming to New York, and he's like, come hang. We're rehearsing. Him and Will Lee's playing in the band.
Nice.
So
Oh wow.
yeah, I'm not gonna, I won't be playing a club date that day. I'm gonna go sit behind Billy Cobham at his rehearsal.
Hey Joe, I gotta ask you. I can't help it. I'm geeking out a little bit, but Neil Peart, did you break bread with him? You sat down and ate food?
Yeah, we were friends. I hung out with him a lot.
What did he eat?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So,
Did he chew in 7/8?
all right. So most people know Neil was extremely private, and he didn't like to be recognized, and he loved talking about his work, and he loved that drummers loved it. I could ask him Rush questions all day long. He indulged it. I think what he didn't like was the fan worship and the uncomfortability of somebody thinking they knew him when they really didn't. Right. And, you have to remember Neil wrote the lyrics. Neil had he had people writing him letters like, I know the secret messages are for me. He had people sneaking onto his bus and waiting in his driveway. That's a different level of creepy fandom, that none of us can understand. So as a result, he was very private. So he had this hideout in downtown LA, and it was kind of right off the 405. And it's where he kept his car collection. He called it the Hallowed Bubba Cave. And that's where I would go to meet him for lunch. He would be like, yeah, I would be like, Neil, I'm coming into town. I'm doing some gigs. You want to have lunch? And he would say, yeah, come there. And he had a couple spots. One was a sushi place on the end of the block, and we would just walk there and we would eat sushi in the place. And then this other time he wanted to go to he's like, there's this good like burrito place, and it was like under the 405. He had on his like Dickies like work clothes and and a baseball hat and shades. We walk under the 405. It's like homeless people everywhere. I'm like, this is out. I'm like with Neil Peart walking under the 405, and we go to the burrito place and construction workers there, and he just liked being like a regular, I'm like, Neil, is that like chicken burrito any good? He said, yeah, that's pretty cool, but I think like tostada is better. Like we just like a regular dude,
So what you're saying is Neil would eat the same food that we do.
Can you
Yes.
believe it?
Yeah.
Joe, you've collaborated and know more famous drummers than anyone ever. Is there any characteristic that you found that they all have in common, or
Great
is it just
question.
we're all the same?
Great question.
Oh, that's a great question. I think there is something that sets apart some of the people who are, at a visionary level like that.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to say what it is. It's a special something that I think in the case of the guys I mentioned, and maybe adding to that, two other guys I've gotten to know well, Steve Smith and David Garibaldi.
Yeah.
And those guys I know pretty well. So like they're really intelligent people, they're not people who neglected the cultivation of their mind to just play paradiddles. They're smart people. They have a drive. They're driven. They have a passion for what they do. They have other interests in life. And they just have this like higher level concept of what they want from their art that I just admire, I guess that's it. They kind of all have it in their own way,
There it is.
It's kind of like that thing that however you do anything is how you do everything. So whatever they did in their life, it's going to be, it's going to be well done and it's going to be well thought out. But the thing that I keep hearing and that everybody's just a person. I mean, Neil Peart liked burritos under the 405. That's cool. I mean, you're a person. And I think the respect that I have for what you do is that when you talk about these people who are the icons and stuff, you don't think of, I'm sure you think about them as a famous drummer, but it's not this geek out weird, oh my God, fanboy thing. It's, this guy's the best in the world at what he does. And he likes chicken burritos, that's cool. It gives it such a human element.
Right. And you have to find, common ground. Like I found common ground with a lot of these guys. And, look, for whatever I've done, I've, like all of us, I've, worked pretty hard at what I do. And I tried to be thoughtful about approaching the projects. But then when you get to know the guys, I've had the bonus like life of this beyond belief. I'm so lucky, so thankful. I mean, I could never have imagined that I'd be, have a friendship with some of these guys. And, I don't know. I don't know why I guess I just put out like what I do to the world and it just came back this way. I don't know how else to say.
I would say that you are as much a practitioner of the same kind of thing that you talked about all these guys being, which is like intention.
Here.
All these guys. One of the things, we've had several of these guys on our show as guests, and we've talked to Billy and Dave, and one of the things that struck me about them is how intentional they are with everything they do and everything they say, and how they play and their music. Everything's very. Very thoughtful. A lot of intention is put into what they're trying to do. There's nothing done carelessly.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about all the work that you've done, and I feel it comes across in the books that you've published and written. And you look at that Steve Gadd book and the Stuart Copeland book, and even the other ones like the Liberty DeVito book. And, there's like, wow, this is a trove of experience and information and culture and drumming that's all wrapped up in this thing that someone put a lot of really intense work into. It really comes across. So,
but that part is fun too, though. Like, like in the bit, one of the all of the guys that I did these with, like they have a different way of getting to talking about the red meat, right? Like,
Right.
and they have memories, and some of the memories are a little jagged, some are maybe a little faded, and some of them, for the most part, are really crisp. But to try to drill down, like you can't ask Steve Gadd, how did you make up the Asia solo? Like that's ridiculous. Like no one can answer, you know. So getting into like, what am I going to ask Billy about when he met John McLaughlin and when he was learning that music, you know, and get him to engage and like talk about it, like give him a doorway to be able to talk about it in a way that's not like a silly question, you know. Like for instance, one thing. And the guys know, you know, one cool thing is that they know I have at least a little commonality. I played a lot of Broadway shows. I played gigs, played with symphonies, the whole thing. So like with Billy, I was like, you know, you probably get asked this a million times, but you're a master at playing in odd times. Like you guys know Solarization, like the opening track on Total Eclipse.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
If you listen, remember one track I said today, listen to it. It's in 27. So it's like a bar of 7/8 and then a bar of 7 with a note taken away.
I always just played in 4.
Yeah. Well, actually,
what's it called? What's it called?
It's called Solarization. Solarization. So yeah, I don't have my sound.
That was so stupid.
My drums are gonna sound bad. So it's like a bar 7. Right? But then the second bar, a 16th is dropped out. So instead of being 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. The second bar has a 2 and a 3 instead of a 3 and a 3. So it's like.
I hear it. Yeah.
And it's completely nutty. And he plays these fills where it's like, and there's like a 1/8 and a half left, and he stops, and then he hits the 1. It's like, you can analyze that, but like, I'd never make that up. So anyway, my point was, when I was talking to Bill about it, he said a couple of funny things. He actually said, to what your point you just said, he's like, I always think of them as 4/4 plus a little more. Or
right.
4/4.
Yeah.
Right? And then he said, I said, what was, you know, I know you grew up playing straight ahead and listening to the music of New York City streets, but like, when did you first get exposed to playing in odd meters? Because you couldn't have hooked up with John McLaughlin and been that good. And he actually said, subbing on the Broadway show Promises.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know he subbed on Broadway shows either.
Wow.
That had a bunch of odd time in it, huh?
I get, yeah. And then all the rest of this stuff, like, you know, I'm a gear guy, so it's like we had to have,
right.
You know, I would go and find all the old ads and stuff. And by the way, I want to show you guys this one. I found this one.
I love those old ads. Old ads are so much fun. Like the old,
check this out.
Any of them.
This is you can't see it well, but in the book you'll see it better. That's a Tama ad from '84. It's the clinic tour that made Dom a star. Dom opening for Billy. And I saw it, like, look what I found. And Billy was like, you got to put that in the book.
Nice.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That's fantastic. Hey, Joe, I got a question for you that I was thinking about before this show. I was looking at the vast array of work that you've been doing with Hudson, and I wanted to ask you, of these bio projects with these star drummers, which one was the most challenging for you and why?
Yeah, I'd say they were probably all equally challenging and rewarding. There were none of them were. They were all wonderful to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think any of them was more challenging. The Neil one I did a little more on my own. We did the DVD, which of course I interviewed him and we did it together. But then the book, he basically was like, you know, Joe, you know, if you want to do it, you do it. I'll check it at the end. And he checked it over, corrected some things, and he wrote the forward. So he kind of like indulged me, let me go on my own.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was great. And the other guys were great. You know, I didn't get to know Stuart quite as well, but he was super accommodating, you know, gave us all the time in the world. And none of them really changed very much of what I wrote. I mean, I'm trying to write like a serious biography about their work. There's not a lot of, and Bill said some things about, getting fired from Vishnu and this check bouncing and all this. I was like, you want me to put that in the book? He's like, yeah, I got nothing to hide. And we put it, I put some things in the book that he remembered, but these aren't like, they're not meant to be like, I've been reading. I'm a reader of history, might not be surprised, but every once in a while, after I read like the Rick Atkinson Liberation trilogy about World War II, I just read Rob Halford's biography, autobiography.
Oh, dude.
Wow.
And most of the rock autobiographies are like, I really feel like they're jive. Like they have a ghostwriter, and it's like really written kind of like, they're like, I just get like this overblown sense of importance from a lot of people,
Sure.
and then other people they might not go where I wanted them to go. Right. Like I'll name names, right? Like I wanted to do one with Alex Van Halen, but I tried to get to him. I couldn't. I read Brothers and it was really good, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to, the Modern Drummer Legends one's pretty cool, but they and I love those guys. They're my friends. I love them, but they reused a lot of old articles. Like I wanted to like write a whole new.
Yeah.
So that's probably the bigger frustration is sometimes I want to get to somebody and maybe I can't get to them.
You know what, Joe?
I gotta ask this because you and I mean, you much more so than I, but we both were students of Dom's, and you knew Dom was such an amazing man. And I look at your career and everything that you've been able to accomplish. I mean, over and above your hard work and your work ethic and your playing and everything you do around the books and Hudson Music and everything. How much of that was fueled by Dom when you first started working with him and meeting him? How much was that fueled by him going, you can do this, and just shoving you into it?
His encouragement and his sort of like obvious belief in me was majorly important. Like I met him, first of all, when I met him, I didn't know anything about this business. I thought either you're a rock star or you have a regular job.
Yep. As we all do, I think. There's a point where all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a second. There's this avenue, there's that avenue. I can do this. I can do some of that, as we all do. Sorry, I had to interject that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. And he started exposing all that stuff to me. And then he's like, then you got to go to the trade shows and then at some point, maybe 2 years into college, I was like, wait a minute, like this guy thinks I can do it. Like, and then I just, he would give me advice, to do certain things. And I would, I guess it took me until I was an adult to realize I'm a very like, I'm a workaholic on some level, and I'm a little OCD, and I'm good at, he'd be like, you got to do 25 clinics in your local schools this year, and then maybe that'll put you on the map for Sabian, and you'll get students out of it. And I would call band directors, and like 9 out of 10 of them wouldn't call me back, but I would just keep at it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that like Mr. Motivator. I'm saying it like, I'd be like, this sucks. 9 of these people didn't call me back. Like, this isn't ever going to work.
Right.
But then the next day I would wake up and try again. Like I'm not like saying I'm like, oh yeah, stay positive. And, Dom was so good. I still struggle with that. Like I'm a realist, like this is a hard business,
Yeah.
He would push me and it helped me. And then over time, it was a huge factor. And then we grew together, and then I had to realize like, okay, like, well, wait a minute though, I'm not him. And then I found my, Dom invented a career for himself that did not exist before him, and it will never exist for anyone else. He bent the world to his self.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, he inspired hundreds of people, thousands all around the world. Mm-hmm. And so then, like, I look at it like people say like, well, if you're going to play Asia, don't play Gad solo. It's already been done. Play your own solo. It's like Dom, you couldn't reproduce what he did. Maybe somebody, can do something in their own way. And I think that's where I was like, okay, well, I'm I definitely like doing clinics, and I actually love speaking to an audience too. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm too stupid to get scared. Like I worry about the play. I'm not yapping, and but maybe like I found my little niche that suits my personality, like
Absolutely.
the writing part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I mean, you've kind of done what he did, but in your way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he created this job, this niche for himself that no one could have possibly imagined.
Yeah.
That didn't exist before. And you're doing a thing that is different but similar in that it's unique, right? Like I don't know anybody else who's writing autobiographical books that also have transcriptions. You've got the Hudson thing, you've got your own teaching, you've got your own playing and touring, you've got the Sabian Education Network, which we should talk about next. You've created your own little niche of the drumming world to inhabit and bent it to your will in a way. So
And
let's applaud you for that, man.
Awesome.
If I can add to that, I have to say this. One of the things that you said, Joe, that was so important about Dom is that you came to a point where you realized, well, I'm not him, I'm me. And I think a lot of drummers, I know, even like guys that are, in my circle, and I tell this to my students all the time, quit comparing yourself to the other drummer, or quit being like, well, this is what this person does. Well, you're not that person. You might know that person, you might be friends with that person, but you're not that person. Be the best you that you can be. And that's what you've done. And I think we all come to that point. Hopefully sometimes you come to that point in your life where you're like, well, this is what I do. This is me. This is my little slice of the pie. I tell people all the time, it's like, in the drumming community, I have this little slice that's me. And I'm trying to broaden it, but I have my little slice, and that's what I do. And that's what I think we've all done. That's what you did. And I think we all owe a big thank you to Dom for that,
Yeah.
Sometimes I try to be the best Rick that I can be, though.
Well, you're doing a good job.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Joe, before we get off the books, I want to make sure that I ask this question too. As a musician and an accomplished drummer, were there any really powerful aha moments that you found when you were going through this music during these projects? Did you have like one that really stood out to you that was like a revelation of, whoa, that's how that happened, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, a different one for every artist. And since Billy, Cobb and Book is what we're doing now, I was a big fan before I started the book, but then when Terry was transcribing and I started listening critically, for one of the first things I do is try to go through the body of work and select what's going to be transcribed and what's going to be discussed and what's going to be analyzed, and try to make it like representative so that somebody who's already a big fan will look at what I picked out and be like, yeah, you got it. Those are the things. GAD, it's hard. So with Billy, I mean,
Right.
Yeah, right. And we would ask we kind of did with Hudson, we kind of went on and we were like, what tracks for GAD would you want covered? And that helped because I had my list, and then we wanted to see what our customers and readers would. And some people I could kind of pick out the people who were being cute. They're trying to think of the most obscure GAD track that no one knows he's on. I'm like, well, is that important though? It's like,
Right.
But Chip, to answer your question with Billy, it was like, I knew about his conceptual creativity and his chops, but when you start looking at the transcriptions of Stratus or the Mahavishnu stuff for sure, it's like looking at it written down, it's like mind blowing the stuff he's playing in the context of those odd meters. But especially in his solo stuff, when he's playing those grooves in like Spanish Moss or Solarization, like or even Red Baron, it's like, oh, was he playing that many notes? I can't believe it. The guy was a beast, and then his command of the time, like his time, so like I had an aha moment with Billy about his importance, his chops, his creativity, and his time, and his ability to play. Like if you listen to like the Stanley Turrentine stuff, like the old CTI records, you'd be like, oh, this is a straight ahead guy.
Right.
Like,
Right.
do you think that's all he does?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that definitely. And I listen to this podcast. It's called For the Ages. It's hosted by David Rubenstein, who's the chair of the New York Historical Society. He's like a guy I really like. He's a billionaire. He actually was president of the Kennedy Center until about 2 weeks ago. And he has this history podcast, and he always has these great authors on, and he always asks them, like, you just finished this book about Benjamin Franklin. Do you admire him more or less now?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And so like with Cobham, I'm like even a bigger fan than I was before.
Oh, how could
That's
you not
cool.
be? How could you not be?
Because sometimes, that old saying, "Don't meet your heroes."
We
that's
gotta
true
get that
sometimes.
book.
That's true. Sometimes.
Yeah. I really have never had that experience.
That's good.
And honestly, like if I did, I probably really wouldn't care.
Yeah.
If I met Buddy and Buddy was like, leave me alone, you suck, I would have been like, sweet.
Wow. Well, Joe, you must have a clone because you've got all this going on with Hudson Digital Music, and then you run the Sabian Education Network, which has been a huge network I could say for everyone here on this show has been pivotal in developing our careers. We've learned so much from you and Dom through information shared on the Sabian Education Network. So can you tell everybody a little bit about that? And if you're a drum teacher, you're going to want to join this for sure.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate you bringing it up. So Sabian has, long had a reputation for being a company that really valued educators and education. They have a pretty amazing roster of educators, not just in drum set, but in the drum corps world and the classical world and so forth. So, they decided that they wanted to put something together. Dom had, in years past, he had like little programs. And I was a member of one years ago where they were trying to get local players that would go out, like we talked about before, doing school clinics and things. And then many years went by and they decided they wanted to have some kind of an organization to support drum teachers because they realized in just talking to people in the industry and doing market research that we as drum teachers are equally and in many, or dare I say most cases, more influential to our students as to what they're playing than most endorsers are.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they look up to us, right? They come in and they see all the stuff we're playing and we're role models for them. Mm-hmm. So Sabians saw the value in us as drum teachers and they're like, we want to have, club for lack of better words and support structure for them. I guess Dom and the people at Sabian, Andy Zildjian and Rick Drum, who's advising Sabian, who used to be president of Vic Firth, and Diodario, who both had great education programs. They were all like kind of brainstorming, and they decided Sabian should have this program. And luckily for me, they're like, what chump can we get to run it? And then we'll get Joe B. He'll do anything. So anyway, no, they said, would you like to run the network? And I said, sure. Can I want to continue to teach and play and write and be in the field. I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing to just work on the industry side, although I love that opportunity and I could see why it would be great for many people. And they said, no, we want you to, we want someone to be out in the field doing it. And so this is probably next year will be 10 years, I think.
Wow. Really? No kidding.
For those around, I want to get off. So yeah,
listening at sabianed.com.
Right. And then you'll fill out a little form that asks you a few demographic questions, and it asks you like where you teach, how many students you have, and a few other little things. That's to make sure we're really getting drum teachers. And if you're younger, maybe you're in college or high school, or you're an adult and you're just starting teaching, and you don't have any students yet, or you have one or two, we still welcome those people into the program. I can see by when they fill out the app if it's a real person that really wants to learn, and it's fine. You don't have to have a lot of students.
And just so for those of you who may not be familiar, there are all these video Zoom calls and discussions that the Sabian Education Network hosts. and they're all about topics related to building a career as a drum instructor. So how to get more students, how to set your pricing structure, how to deal with cancellation policies, all that kind of stuff that we all kind of learned the hard way from experience. You know, if you're new at this, you can benefit from the years of experience that all these educators have on these Zoom calls, and they're all recorded. You can watch them, the old ones. And it's got just a trove of information that to help you, avoid all kinds of mistakes and pitfalls.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So we like, you guys are doing here. When Dom was here, he did one every month and I did one every month. It slowed down a little. We have some ideas we're going to maybe try out. We're trying to keep it reinvented and fresh and everything. One thing that we do have is we also have the forum. If once you have a membership, you can go in. We have a members only forum. It's hard to keep a forum running these days, but the good thing is it's like, it's fully behind the gates, so to speak. So it's like really respectful. Like people are actually coming in there looking for help. They're promoting products, but they're doing it in a respectful way. I always had the rule, you just don't, as long as you don't throw sand in the sandbox, we're all good. Everyone's and it's never happened in SEN. Like I've never had to reprimand somebody for posting something.
Yeah.
People don't do that. It's a very cool and respectful community. So we've been kind of contemplating some kind of social media presence, maybe a group or something.
Right on.
Yeah.
That would be great. I mean, it's I think I agree with you. I think the forum thing is really cool. But the social media thing is so almost needed. It used to be, we used to say, my bass player and I would always talk about how your website is the front door to your business. But nowadays it's your social media presence is the front door to your business. A website's almost like, oh yeah, we have a website too.
Right. I think, Bart,
that would be cool. That would be cool.
I think we're going to try it, Bart, but I think the reason I've hesitated in the past, and we always talk about it, like once we let that genie out of the bottle, like it's going to be hard to pull it back in. And like the concerns I have are like, and we're on Facebook now. I mean, if anybody has a comment, that's by the way, James, thank you for that kind thing you said. Like if we open up the Facebook group, given the demographic of a lot of the members, I'm not sure that the group and the forum can both run. One of them is going to suffer. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook, like people aren't really joining SEN. They can join the group. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't, unless I get some AI that can cross-reference whether they really joined. Like I don't want Facebook to own the list. It's it's a SEN. I want it to be for us,
Well, yeah. That's
so. These are the things I've been contemplating. But I think we're going to pull the trigger. But these are the kind of things. It's like exciting to try to think. And within all those things, the content is, like Jeremy said, it's supposed to help us to do what we do, and also like shine a little light on the guys and gals who are kicking butt doing it.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I love. I mean, and again, I think we're all being geeks today. I know for me, I am. I think like being part of the club. It's just a cool thing. I mean, running into your friends at NAMM or PASIC or hanging out, and just I love it so much. It's really a cool thing. We share such a common bond and such a common thing that, it's rhythm. We all have a heartbeat, and this is the way I do it. This is the way you do it. It's all cool. It's very, very hip.
Well, Bart, I'm glad, it's funny. You reminded me when you said that. I always say with SEN, I can remember going to a few of my early PASICs, and, Don would be like, go to PASIC, and then I'd be like thinking I'm going to be hanging out with him. He's like, okay, kid, get in there. Like these guys. But I can remember sitting in like a bar in Nashville with like one of my kind of acquaintances from Jersey and like 4 other drum teachers I just met from different cities. And we were like sitting there over a beer, like, oh man, like what, you live in Atlanta? Like how do you get a lot of students? How old are they? Like, what do you do when people cancel? Like, what book are you using for jazz? Going around this, and it was
kind of like what we do. Yeah.
Totally. That's what we do. Yeah.
Exactly. You guys, this thing, whether it was in the bar in Nashville or this conversation, that's the vibe I wanted the Sabian Education Network to have.
Right on.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, we just have a couple minutes left, and before we will let you go, we want to ask you about your charts for working man's charts that you have
Yes.
of your own, and this is sort of your own Joe Bergamini project that's not related to Sabian or Hudson or anything, right?
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple. So it started with a book. I did a book called Working Drummer Chart Book, and the concept behind this book is basically how to make a chart if you're a working player. So this is the song "Chicken Fried" by the Zach Brown Band. So my charts have like some shorthand in them.
Cool.
So they're not transcriptions. But in this book, I designed it to show like what I think are the key elements of making charts. So like the form, these are all different things like D.E.C's, notation. What do you transcribe? What do you not transcribe? Is it important to have the style on there? What does it mean when you have ensemble figures above a staff? What does it mean when they're on the staff?
Mm-hmm.
How do you use those things to make a chart? So the book started there, and the impetus for it was because this is how a lot of us make charts for gigs. If I'm on a gig and we're playing a song that has, I don't need a transcription of most of these songs, right? But what I do need is a high level view of the form. And I would go into my students would bring in stuff from websites, and maybe it was like, I don't know, Billie Jean, and it was like a transcription of 100 bars of that with no verse, no chorus, no. Like, that's useless on a gig, like useless, right? Like, and it sort of like betrays that the writer as a drummer is not thinking like a musician. They're not thinking about the form. They're not thinking about what the other players are thinking of goes into a song. So, after I got off my little soapbox, I decided to make the charts into a book. And then the next level was over the years got good at getting the stuff fast into the notation program. And I figured I got like 600 of these things laying around. So I'll make a website. It's called workingdrummercharts.com. I don't know if you could, this might
I can put a link to it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it looks like this. It's got like a list. I don't know if you could see it. Probably not.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it whiting out? No, you can see it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can scroll through. You can scroll through by artist, by title, and I have some free ones in there. The rest of them are 99 cents a pop. And like I said, maybe someday I'll have everybody else give me their charts, and we'll make it a massive library.
Yeah,
That's cool.
That's cool.
Hey,
on
guys,
a personal,
I'm sorry.
on a personal, super quick. I'm going to be in New York with the Sam Morrison Band on July 23rd. I wasn't being rude looking at my phone. We're up in Rochester, but dude, if you can make it, I would love to have you come.
I would love to, brother. That's like 4 hours and change for me.
Well, you don't have anything else going on that day.
Hey guys, I wanted to say a quick shout out to John, James, Lindsay. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being in the chat. And we have a celebrity in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, Fred Rock Fisher from the Drummergy podcast.
Fred Rock
What's up,
Fisher.
Fred?
Hey,
Thanks
Fred.
for the support. He's always shouting us out on his show. Thank you, Fred. And Joe,
Fred is the
Joe,
best of
thank
the
you
best.
for being on the show today. Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chip.
Joe, always a pleasure to have you on, man. So great to talk to you. Keep doing the good fight, man, and we love what you're doing. And thank you for everything.
You guys are the best, man. I really appreciate all of you, Jeremy, Bart, Rick, Chip. You guys are awesome. Anytime you want me to come in here and blab away. That was an hour. That was great.
It went by really quick.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
Bart,
We
Right on,
appreciate
Joe.
everything you do, man.
next week we have Chris from Audix Mics. Is that right, Bart?
No, Chris is not till March.
Oh, my bad. Excuse me.
Yeah, he's in the end of March. I'm not sure who's next week is actually our 200th episode.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
our
we gotta tune
200th
into that.
episode. Yeah. So we're going
All
to
right,
talk
well, we'll
about.
let you know.
I don't know what we're going to talk about on our 200th episode.
How to do 200 episodes.
How to do 200 episodes.
Yeah.
How
All
to
right,
be
guys.
friends with Joe Bergamini.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thanks,
you,
Joe, for
Joe.
coming on our show. And we'll see you all
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.